There comes a moment in every woman's life when the pain isn't just about what he did, it's about what it tried to make you believe about yourself. Maybe he ignored you. Maybe he betrayed you. Maybe he walked away like your heart was something disposable. And for a second, just a second, you wondered if you were the problem. But let me tell you something today. The most powerful response to a man who hurts you is not chasing him, not begging him, not even trying to prove your worth to him. It's becoming so whole, so unbothered, and so aligned with your purpose that he can't even recognize the version of you standing in front of him. See, confusion begins the moment he expects you to break. And instead you build. He expects tears, but you bring growth. He expects silence, but you bring purpose. He expects you to stay the same, but you evolve. And suddenly the woman he thought he understood becomes the woman he can't figure out. So today we're going to talk about how to respond when a man hurts you in a way that protects your peace, restores your power, and leaves him wondering how he ever thought he could break you. Asterisk, asterisk, let's get into it. One of the most powerful things you can do when a man hurts you is something that feels almost impossible in the moment. Stop reacting emotionally right away. When someone you care about disappoints you, lies to you, ignores you, or breaks your trust, your first instinct is usually to respond with emotion. You want answers. You want acknowledgement. You want him to understand the pain he caused. Your heart races, your mind fills with questions, and before you know it, you are texting, calling, explaining, defending, or even arguing. But reacting in that emotional storm often gives away your power at the very moment you need it the most. Pain has a way of pushing us to respond quickly. It convinces us that we must fix the situation immediately. It tells us that if we just explain ourselves well enough, he will suddenly understand and change. But the truth is that most emotional reactions in moments of hurt are not coming from strength. They are coming from shock, disappointment, and wounded pride. When you react instantly, you are responding from the deepest part of your pain instead of the strongest part of your wisdom. Stopping yourself from reacting right away is not about pretending you are not hurt. It is not about suppressing your feelings or acting like everything is fine. Instead, it is about creating space between the hurt and your response. That space is where your power lives. When you pause, when you take a step back, when you allow your emotions to settle before you say or do anything, you move from reaction to intention. Many people do not realize how much emotional reactions can reveal. When someone hurts you and you immediately respond with anger, pleading, or long emotional explanations, it shows them exactly where your vulnerabilities are. It tells them how deeply their actions affect you. Unfortunately, some people who are not emotionally mature may use that information to maintain control of the situation. They may dismiss your feelings, minimize the situation, or even turn the blame back onto you. But when you stop reacting emotionally in the moment, something unexpected happens. The dynamic changes. The energy shifts. Instead of feeding the situation with more emotion, you introduce silence, composure, and mystery. Suddenly, the person who expected a dramatic response is left facing something they did not anticipate. You're calm. Calmness in moments of hurt is not weakness, it is discipline. It means you understand that your emotions are valid, but they do not have to dictate your immediate actions. You recognize that you deserve the time to process what happened before deciding how to respond. That pause gives you the opportunity to think clearly instead of speaking words you may later regret. When people react emotionally, they often end up explaining themselves too much. They try to justify why they are hurt, listing every detail of what went wrong, hoping the other person will finally understand. But over-explaining rarely changes someone who already chose behavior that caused pain. Instead, it can sometimes make you feel even more exposed and unheard. By choosing not to react right away, you reclaim control over your voice. You remind yourself that not every moment requires an immediate response. Sometimes the most powerful move is to observe, to reflect, and to understand what the situation is truly showing you about the other person's character and intentions. This pause also protects your dignity. Emotional reactions in the heat of the moment can lead to arguments that spiral out of control. Words are said that cannot be taken back. Accusations fly, defenses rise, and the conversation shifts from understanding to winning. But when you step back, you allow the storm to pass before engaging with the situation. Another important reason to stop reacting emotionally is that it helps you see things more clearly. When you are overwhelmed with hurt, your mind can jump to conclusions or imagine the worst possible meanings behind someone's actions. Giving yourself time to breathe, reflect, and process allows you to separate facts from assumptions. During that pause, you can ask yourself deeper questions. What exactly hurt you about the situation? Was it the action itself or what it represented? Did it cross a boundary that matters deeply to you? Is this behavior a pattern or a single mistake? These reflections allow you to approach the situation with clarity rather than confusion. Something else begins to happen when you stop reacting emotionally. You begin to strengthen your self-respect. You show yourself that your value does not depend on someone's immediate validation. You prove to yourself that you can handle disappointment with grace instead of desperation. This does not mean that you never address the issue. Silence is not meant to avoid communication forever. Instead, it is meant to ensure that when you do speak, your words come from a place of strength rather than wounded impulse. When you finally choose to express how you feel, your message becomes clearer, calmer, and more impactful. Interestingly, your calm response can also shift how the other person views the situation. When someone expects anger, begging, or emotional chaos, and instead receives composure and distance, it often forces them to reflect. They may start to question their assumptions about how you would react. They may even realize the weight of their actions in a way they might not have if you had immediately erupted with emotion. Stopping emotional reactions also protects your peace. Your energy is precious, and not every painful moment deserves all of it. By stepping back instead of diving into immediate conflict, you conserve your mental and emotional strength. You give yourself the chance to heal rather than prolong the hurt. The truth is that emotional discipline is one of the strongest forms of self-protection. Anyone can react in the heat of the moment, but it takes real strength to pause, breathe, and choose your response carefully. That pause is not silence born from fear. It is silence born from wisdom. When you master the ability to stop reacting emotionally right away, you become far less predictable to those who expect control over your feelings. You become someone who moves with intention rather than impulse. And in that quiet shift, you rediscover something incredibly important. Your peace, your clarity, and your power were never meant to be handed away in the first place. Withdrawing your attention and energy when a man hurts you is one of the most subtle yet powerful moves you can make. It is easy to underestimate just how much influence your focus, time, and presence hold in any relationship. Often when someone causes us pain, our instinct is to keep engaging with them, to demand explanations, or to try to make them understand how we feel. We give them the gift of our attention, our emotional bandwidth, and our energy, hoping that our efforts will mend the situation. But in reality, the more you give to someone who has hurt you without boundaries, the more you reinforce patterns that diminish your own self-worth. Withdrawing attention is not about punishment. It is about self-preservation and reclaiming your personal power. When a man hurts you, continuing to invest in him immediately after the hurt sends a subtle message that his behavior does not have consequences. It can unintentionally communicate that you will tolerate being disrespected, ignored, or mistreated. The human mind is wired to respond to patterns, and when someone realizes that their actions do not impact your behavior, they may continue the same harmful behaviors. By consciously pulling back your attention and energy, you create a natural boundary that communicates, without words, that your time and emotional investment are valuable. You are demonstrating that you will not fuel negativity with your presence. This withdrawal is not about acting cold or vengeful. It is about redirecting your focus back to yourself. Often, when we are hurt, we become consumed with the other person's behavior, trying to understand why they acted the way they did, or imagining ways to repair the relationship immediately. This focus on them, however, keeps us in a state of emotional dependency and distraction. By intentionally stepping back, you allow your mind and heart to realign with your own priorities, your own healing, and your own growth. You are choosing to invest your precious energy where it can be nourished rather than depleted. Pulling your attention away also creates a form of emotional clarity. When you are constantly in the orbit of someone who hurts you, it becomes difficult to see the situation objectively. Thoughts and emotions collide in a confusing spiral, making it hard to distinguish between genuine remorse and manipulation. By stepping back, you create space for reflection. You can examine the situation with honesty, separate facts from assumptions, and understand what your boundaries truly require. This clarity allows you to act intentionally rather than react impulsively. The act of withdrawing energy is also a statement of self-respect. When you stop giving someone your time, your emotions, and your mental energy after they have hurt you, you affirm your own value. You are saying, without needing to speak, that your well-being is more important than proving a point or securing temporary validation. This subtle shift in behavior signals to others, and most importantly to yourself, that you are not defined by the way someone else treats you. You define your own worth, and you choose where and how to invest it. There is a psychological aspect to this that is often overlooked. Many people underestimate the power of absence. When someone is used to your constant attention, withdrawing it can provoke reflection on their part. It disrupts expectations and shifts the dynamic in a way that mere words cannot. This is not about manipulation in a toxic sense. It is about creating a natural consequence for hurtful behavior. Absence allows both parties to reassess their roles, their actions, and their impact, often leading to a deeper awareness that cannot emerge through confrontation alone. Withdrawing energy is also essential for protecting your emotional reserves. Engaging continuously with someone who hurts you can drain your spirit, cloud your judgment, and make it difficult to prioritize self-care. Emotional fatigue builds when you are constantly responding to negativity, defending your position, or trying to elicit recognition. By redirecting your energy inward, you preserve your vitality and ensure that you are functioning from a place of strength. This is not retreating from life. It is strategically conserving your resources for moments where your presence truly matters. It is important to note that withdrawal does not necessarily mean cutting off entirely or harboring resentment. It can be as simple as limiting communication, stepping away from constant updates, or not over-investing emotionally in someone who has shown disregard for your feelings. By creating these boundaries, you reinforce the importance of your time and attention, which are precious commodities that should not be squandered on those unwilling to honor them. This disciplined approach also prevents the chaos that often accompanies emotionally reactive responses. Another key aspect of withdrawing attention is the opportunity it provides for personal growth. When you shift your focus inward, you can evaluate your own patterns, recognize lessons from the experience, and strengthen your resilience. It becomes a chance to practice self-compassion, to nurture hobbies and passions that may have been neglected, and to rebuild confidence in your decision-making abilities. The energy that was once consumed by frustration or longing can now be invested in building the best version of yourself. Over time, consistently choosing where to allocate your energy shapes the way you are perceived by others. People learn that your presence is not automatic, it is earned and respected. By withdrawing attention after being hurt, you establish a standard for how you expect to be treated, and this often deters future disrespect. It communicates that you will not participate in dynamics that undermine your peace, your dignity, or your emotional well-being. Finally, this practice reinforces a fundamental truth. Your attention and energy are among your most valuable assets. When you choose to withhold them from those who cause harm, you are protecting not just your emotional state, but the integrity of your life. The more intentional you become about where you focus your energy, the more empowered you feel, and the more capable you are of creating a life that aligns with your values, your goals, and your self-respect. Withdrawal in this sense is not absence. It is a reclamation of your power, a conscious decision to prioritize yourself, and a reminder that your peace is non-negotiable. By learning to step back, to redirect attention inward, and to conserve your energy, you cultivate resilience and self-mastery. You are no longer at the mercy of someone else's actions or opinions. You create a protective space where your heart and mind can heal, reflect, and grow stronger. Over time, this practice not only shields you from further pain, but also empowers you to interact with others from a place of strength, clarity, and intentionality, leaving behind patterns that once left you vulnerable and unsettled. One of the most challenging things to practice when a man hurts you is learning not to explain your pain to the person who caused it. It feels natural to want to be heard, to make someone understand the weight of their actions, and to seek validation for the hurt you are feeling. After all, when someone has wounded you, you may think that the best way to regain a sense of justice or clarity is by laying out every detail of your suffering, hoping they will finally see the consequences of their behavior. However, this instinct, though understandable, often does more harm than good. Explaining your pain to someone who caused it can inadvertently reinforce patterns that leave you exposed and drained, and it rarely produces the closure or understanding you hope for. When you attempt to explain your pain, you are assuming that the other person has the capacity or willingness to fully understand and empathize. Unfortunately, many people who hurt others are acting from a place of immaturity, self-interest, or emotional unawareness. They may listen superficially, but fail to internalize the gravity of their actions. Some may even use your explanations as a roadmap for future manipulation, learning precisely what buttons to press to get a reaction. By giving them the full narrative of your hurt, you risk empowering them with knowledge that works against your peace, rather than in favor of it. Moreover, explaining your pain often keeps you entangled in the other person's world instead of helping you reclaim your own. When you recount your feelings, you are directing your emotional energy outward rather than inward. You are putting your focus on their understanding rather than your healing. This outward focus can create an unhealthy loop where you feel compelled to continue explaining, justifying, or clarifying until some sense of acknowledgement is achieved. In reality, acknowledgement from them is not always forthcoming, and waiting for it can prolong your suffering unnecessarily. Choosing not to explain your pain also protects your dignity. When you feel hurt, it is easy to slip into pleading or over-explaining, which can feel humiliating in retrospect. The more you justify your feelings, the more you inadvertently signal that your worth is dependent on their perception or approval. True dignity comes from understanding that your emotions are valid and sufficient on their own without needing external validation. You do not have to earn empathy by detailing every moment of suffering. Your feelings deserve respect simply because they exist. Another important aspect is that explaining your pain often invites debate or deflection. When someone has hurt you, particularly if they are defensive, they may respond not with remorse, but with excuses, blame shifting, or counter-arguments. This response can intensify your frustration and deepen the wound, leaving you feeling unheard and misunderstood despite your efforts. By refraining from explanations, you remove the possibility of arguments and maintain control over your emotional state. Silence becomes a protective shield rather than a void. Not explaining your pain is also a form of emotional intelligence. It is an acknowledgement that you cannot control how another person receives or processes your feelings. You recognize that some people are not equipped to respond in a way that honors your experience. Instead of insisting they meet your expectations, you turn your focus inward, seeking validation and understanding from yourself or from trusted allies who are capable of supporting your growth. This practice reinforces self-reliance and strengthens emotional resilience. Furthermore, withholding explanations does not mean ignoring your pain or pretending it does not exist. It is about choosing the right audience for your vulnerability. Sharing your feelings with friends, family, or a therapist allows you to process the hurt in a space designed for empathy and growth, rather than in a space where your words might be dismissed or weaponized. This distinction is crucial for maintaining both your emotional health and your strategic boundaries in relationships. When you resist the urge to explain, you also create a form of empowerment that is subtle but profound. It shifts the dynamic from one where the other person holds power over your emotional response to one where you are fully in control. Your pain becomes your own to process and manage, rather than something you hand over to someone who may not respect it. This internalization fosters independence and a stronger sense of self, reinforcing that your value and peace are not contingent on the behavior or approval of someone else. There is also a strategic element in choosing silence over explanation. Many times, people who hurt us expect a certain reaction: tears, pleading, anger, or endless explanations. By withholding your narrative, you deny them the predictable responses they may be seeking. This unpredictability can shift their perception, prompting reflection or discomfort that they might not otherwise experience. Your silence, in this sense, is both protective and transformative, redirecting energy back to yourself rather than feeding the cycle of hurt. Resisting the urge to explain also encourages mindfulness. It forces you to pause and examine why you feel compelled to seek their understanding. Are you hoping to change their behavior? Are you seeking acknowledgement that may never come? Are you trying to validate your own feelings through someone else's recognition? These reflections reveal deeper truths about your needs and priorities, allowing you to respond in ways that truly serve your well-being rather than reacting impulsively. When practiced consistently, this approach fosters a strong internal locus of control. You learn that your emotional state is yours to manage, and you become less dependent on external approval for your sense of peace. Over time, this cultivates emotional maturity, resilience, and a clear sense of boundaries. You begin to recognize that not everyone deserves access to your vulnerability, especially those who have demonstrated an inability to handle it with care and respect. By choosing not to explain your pain, you also open space for genuine reflection and growth. Without the distraction of seeking acknowledgement, you can turn inward to understand what the experience has taught you about your boundaries, your needs, and your capacity for self-respect. You become attuned to patterns in behavior, recognizing early signs of disrespect or disregard, and you develop stronger instincts for protecting yourself in future interactions. In essence, the power of not explaining your pain lies in reclaiming your energy, protecting your dignity, and reinforcing your boundaries. It is a conscious choice to honor your feelings without giving someone else the authority to dictate their importance. Your pain remains valid, real, and worthy of attention first and foremost from yourself. By holding your emotional space, you foster resilience, clarity, and self-respect, creating a foundation from which you can navigate relationships with strength, intention, and grace. Ultimately, the decision to withhold explanations transforms a potentially draining situation into an opportunity for empowerment. You learn to prioritize your peace over the desire for validation, to process your emotions internally rather than externally, and to cultivate a self-contained sense of worth that no one else can diminish. In this way, choosing not to explain your pain is not silence born of fear. It is a deliberate act of power, dignity, and strategic emotional mastery that leaves you stronger, wiser, and more resilient in the face of hurt. Focusing on rebuilding your self-respect after a man hurts you is one of the most transformative steps you can take, though it is often overlooked in the wake of emotional pain. When someone causes harm, whether through betrayal, neglect, or outright cruelty, it can feel as if the foundation of your worth has been shaken. The instinct is to seek validation from them, to try to repair what was broken, or to prove to them, and sometimes to yourself, that you are worthy of love, attention, and respect. Yet chasing external validation after being hurt rarely restores your sense of self. True restoration comes from turning inward, examining the integrity of your own boundaries, and consciously nurturing the respect you hold for yourself. Rebuilding self-respect begins with acknowledging the ways in which it was compromised. When someone hurts you, it is easy to internalize their actions, asking yourself if you somehow invited the pain or failed to protect yourself. This self-blame is a natural response, but it is both unfair and counterproductive. Recognizing that their actions reflect their character and choices rather than your value is the first step toward reclaiming your dignity. By separating their behavior from your self-worth, you create the mental space needed to restore your own esteem. The next part of this process involves reestablishing boundaries that honor your values. Self-respect thrives when you define what is acceptable and unacceptable in your interactions. After experiencing hurt, it is essential to reflect on which boundaries were crossed and how to protect yourself moving forward. Setting clear boundaries is not an act of punishment. It is an act of preservation. It signals to both yourself and others that your emotional space matters, that your well-being is a priority, and that your dignity cannot be compromised without consequence. Focusing on self-respect also requires shifting your attention from the other person to your own actions, habits, and thought patterns. Instead of analyzing why they hurt you or attempting to decode their intentions, turn your energy towards strengthening yourself. Engage in practices that reinforce your sense of worth, pursue goals that matter to you, cultivate hobbies that bring fulfillment, and nurture relationships that honor and uplift you. By investing in yourself, you reinforce the idea that your value is inherent, not dependent on someone else's recognition or approval. Another critical element of rebuilding self-respect is learning to speak to yourself with kindness and affirmation. Hurtful experiences can leave a lingering inner voice that doubts your judgment, questions your attractiveness, or undermines your confidence. It is essential to counteract these narratives with deliberate self-talk that reinforces your strengths, your boundaries, and your right to dignity. Affirmations, journaling, and reflective practices can help solidify a sense of self-worth that is resilient to external events and actions. Rebuilding self-respect also involves embracing accountability, but not in a way that blames you for the pain caused. It means taking responsibility for the parts of your life and choices that are within your control. It is about recognizing patterns that may have left you vulnerable without faulting yourself for the harm inflicted by another. This awareness empowers you to make different choices moving forward, to create interactions that align with your values, and to refuse engagement in situations that compromise your dignity. An essential aspect of this journey is understanding that self-respect is expressed through action, not just thought. It is visible in the decisions you make, the standards you enforce, and the way you allow others to treat you. Rebuilding self-respect often involves saying no to situations or people who perpetuate harm, declining invitations that compromise your well-being, and reclaiming your time and energy for pursuits that reinforce your integrity. Each action taken in alignment with your values strengthens the foundation of self-respect. Moreover, focusing on rebuilding self-respect helps to recalibrate your emotional responses. When you have a strong sense of your own worth, you are less likely to be destabilized by someone else's actions or words. Hurt becomes something you can acknowledge and process without allowing it to define your identity or self-esteem. Emotional resilience grows as your self-respect deepens, creating a buffer against future challenges and disappointments. It is also important to recognize that rebuilding self-respect is a gradual process. The wounds caused by someone else's actions may leave lingering doubt or emotional discomfort, and these feelings can resurface unexpectedly. Patience with yourself is crucial. Celebrate small victories in reclaiming your dignity, whether it is asserting a boundary, making a decision that honors your values, or simply feeling confident in your sense of self despite past hurt. Each step contributes to the restoration of your internal authority and personal power. Another dimension of restoring self-respect is learning to trust yourself again. When someone hurts you, it can shake your confidence in your own judgment. Rebuilding self-respect involves reaffirming your ability to discern who and what aligns with your values, to recognize red flags, and to make choices that prioritize your well-being. Trusting your intuition and decisions becomes a cornerstone of personal empowerment and prevents repeated patterns of compromise that erode self-esteem. Focusing on self-respect also impacts your relationships with others. As you rebuild your sense of worth, you naturally attract people who honor and value you. The energy you project when you prioritize yourself communicates that you will not tolerate mistreatment. And those who do not respect that boundary are less likely to remain in your inner circle. Conversely, relationships that are mutually supportive flourish, creating a network of connection that reinforces your self-respect and personal growth. Rebuilding self-respect requires a mindset shift from external validation to internal authority. It is the recognition that your value does not depend on someone else's perception or treatment of you. You do not need to prove yourself to anyone, and no action from another person can diminish your inherent worth. This mindset frees you from the need to seek approval from those who have caused harm and anchors you in a stable sense of self. An often overlooked component is the physical embodiment of self-respect. How you carry yourself, the way you speak, and how you engage with the world all reflect your internal sense of worth. Practicing posture, presence, and confidence, even when you do not feel fully restored, can reinforce self-respect and gradually shape your inner state. The external expression of dignity often informs internal belief, creating a feedback loop that strengthens your resolve and emotional fortitude. Ultimately, focusing on rebuilding self-respect is about reclaiming ownership of your life after experiencing hurt. It is about choosing yourself, protecting your boundaries, nurturing your growth, and aligning your actions with your values. By intentionally cultivating self-respect, you transform the experience of being hurt from a moment of disempowerment into an opportunity for profound personal growth. You emerge not only healed, but stronger, wiser, and more attuned to your worth than ever before. Through this deliberate practice, you ensure that your self-respect is resilient, unshakable, and enduring no matter what challenges arise in the future. Upgrading your boundaries without announcing them is one of the most subtle yet powerful ways to reclaim your power after being hurt. When a man wounds you, whether through betrayal, neglect, or manipulation, the instinct is often to confront, explain, or demand change. While these responses are understandable, they tend to focus attention on the other person rather than reinforcing your own strength. True empowerment comes from quietly, intentionally raising your standards and reinforcing the limits that protect your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. Doing this without broadcasting, it ensures that your growth remains for your benefit, not for their acknowledgement or reaction. When boundaries are upgraded silently, they carry a different weight than those that are loudly announced. Many people believe that announcing boundaries will guarantee respect, but in reality, proclamations often serve the other person more than they serve you. By making a declaration, you may inadvertently give them a roadmap to push against, testing the limits you claim to uphold. In contrast, boundaries that are implemented quietly are enforced consistently through your actions, creating consequences naturally without the need for argument or debate. This method preserves your dignity while protecting your energy from unnecessary conflicts. Upgrading boundaries begins with introspection. After experiencing hurt, it is essential to evaluate which aspects of your life or interactions were compromised and identify what you need to feel safe and respected moving forward. Perhaps it is the frequency of communication, the topics you discuss, or the level of emotional intimacy you allow. Maybe it is simply deciding not to tolerate dismissive or disrespectful behavior. Once you identify these areas, you can begin to reinforce them in ways that are tangible, deliberate, and unspoken. Implementing boundaries without announcing them requires discipline and consistency. It means making choices aligned with your new standards, even if the other person notices or reacts. For example, you might limit your availability without explaining why, refuse to engage in conversations that feel draining, or decline invitations that compromise your peace. Each action reinforces your boundaries without needing validation from anyone else. The impact is often more profound because it communicates your self-respect through behavior rather than words. And actions carry a weight that announcements rarely match. One of the most powerful aspects of silently upgraded boundaries is that they shift the dynamic in a relationship. When someone expects you to remain available, reactive, or compliant, and suddenly encounters resistance, they are forced to reevaluate their assumptions. They can no longer predict your responses, which creates a natural recalibration of the relationship. This unpredictability, rooted in self-respect and personal empowerment, disrupts old patterns of behavior and encourages accountability without confrontation. Maintaining these boundaries without explaining them also strengthens your internal locus of control. You are not relying on the other person's understanding, acceptance, or approval to enforce your limits. Instead, you are choosing your own standards and living by them. This internal focus fosters independence and resilience because you learn to prioritize your well-being regardless of external recognition. Your peace and dignity are no longer negotiable, and your actions consistently reflect that truth. Silently upgraded boundaries also create a powerful form of self-protection. After being hurt, it is common to feel vulnerable or exposed, and without careful attention, patterns of overgiving or over-explaining can resurface. By reinforcing boundaries through action rather than words, you prevent repeated emotional violations while conserving your energy. You do not need to justify your limits or defend your decisions. Your behavior communicates your standards more effectively than any argument ever could. Another significant benefit is that these boundaries promote self-awareness and self-respect. By consciously deciding what you will and will not tolerate, you cultivate a deeper understanding of your needs, values, and priorities. This awareness becomes a compass for all future interactions, helping you recognize early warning signs, avoid toxic dynamics, and maintain alignment with your personal principles. Over time, the consistent practice of upholding your limits without explanation strengthens both your confidence and your clarity. Silently enforcing boundaries also allows for emotional detachment in a healthy way. When you remove the expectation of explanation, you release yourself from the burden of trying to control the other person's perception. You no longer need to justify your actions or convince anyone of your worth. This detachment fosters emotional stability, reducing anxiety, frustration, and the need for validation. Your boundaries exist for you, not for their approval. And this perspective reinforces self-sovereignty. It is also essential to recognize that upgraded boundaries do not have to be extreme or punitive to be effective. They can be as simple as choosing not to engage in unnecessary arguments, limiting contact when interactions feel draining, or protecting your time and attention from being exploited. The key is consistency and intentionality. Each boundary, no matter how small, reinforces a message to yourself. Your emotional and mental well-being is a priority, and you will no longer compromise it for someone who does not honor it. In practice, silently upgraded boundaries teach others to respect you through observation rather than persuasion. People respond more readily to demonstrated consistency than to verbal warnings. When you consistently honor your limits, the other person must adapt to your standards or risk losing your engagement entirely. This quiet assertiveness fosters respect naturally because it is rooted in self-respect rather than confrontation. The process of silently upgrading boundaries also encourages patience and mindfulness. You learn to observe your own responses, to assess situations before reacting, and to choose actions that align with your values. This approach minimizes impulsive reactions that can perpetuate conflict or invite unnecessary stress. You become more intentional, thoughtful, and strategic in your interactions, ensuring that every choice reinforces your sense of dignity and strength. Ultimately, upgrading your boundaries without announcing them is a practice of empowerment, self-preservation, and emotional intelligence. It allows you to protect your energy, maintain your dignity, and cultivate relationships that honor your worth. It is a quiet, intentional form of strength that communicates more than words ever could, shaping interactions in a way that fosters respect and personal growth. By implementing this approach, you reclaim authority over your emotional landscape, demonstrating that your peace, integrity, and self-respect are non-negotiable, and that the way others treat you is a reflection of the standards you uphold consistently through your actions. This practice, while subtle, creates lasting change. It builds confidence, teaches resilience, and solidifies a sense of autonomy that is impossible to undermine with words or actions from someone who has previously caused pain. Over time, silently enforcing upgraded boundaries becomes second nature, creating a life in which your energy is safeguarded, your dignity is preserved, and your interactions reflect the respect and self-worth you have intentionally cultivated. This quiet power is unshakable, invisible in its announcement, yet undeniable in its effect, transforming not just the way others treat you, but the way you see and value yourself in the aftermath of hurt. Redirecting your energy toward personal growth after a man hurts you is one of the most effective ways to reclaim your power and restore your sense of self. When someone causes pain through betrayal, neglect, or emotional manipulation, it is easy to get caught in a cycle of rumination, replaying their words and actions over and over in your mind. This mental loop can drain your emotional reserves, leaving you exhausted, anxious, and stuck in a place of self-doubt. By consciously choosing to redirect your energy toward personal growth, you shift the focus from the pain inflicted by someone else to the development of your own resilience, skills, and confidence. This shift not only helps you heal, but also transforms the experience of hurt into a catalyst for empowerment. The first step in redirecting energy is recognizing where your attention is going. When someone hurts you, it is natural to fixate on their behavior, wondering why they acted a certain way, what their intentions were, or how you might have prevented the hurt. While this reflection can be useful in moderation, excessive rumination keeps you tethered to the source of your pain. By consciously redirecting your focus to your own growth, you reclaim control over your thoughts, preventing them from being hijacked by anger, disappointment, or regret. This redirection allows you to invest your mental and emotional resources in activities that nurture your potential rather than diminish it. Investing in personal growth can take many forms. It may involve pursuing educational or career goals that have been delayed or neglected, developing new skills, or engaging in creative projects that bring fulfillment and joy. It could also include physical growth, such as committing to regular exercise, improving nutrition, or prioritizing sleep and self-care routines that strengthen both body and mind. By channeling your energy into tangible actions that benefit you, you create forward momentum and a sense of accomplishment that counterbalances the pain of the past. Emotional growth is another crucial aspect of this process. Redirecting your energy toward understanding yourself, your patterns, and your reactions can deepen your emotional intelligence and resilience. Journaling, meditation, or therapy are powerful tools for exploring your feelings and learning from the experience without being consumed by it. By examining your emotional responses, you can identify triggers, reinforce healthy coping strategies, and cultivate a sense of inner stability that is less dependent on external circumstances or other people's behavior. Redirecting energy also strengthens your sense of purpose. When someone hurts you, it can feel as though your world has shifted, leaving you unmoored or uncertain about your direction. Focusing on personal growth allows you to reconnect with your passions, ambitions, and values. It provides a constructive outlet for your energy, turning frustration and disappointment into motivation for self-improvement. This sense of purpose acts as a compass, guiding your actions and decisions while reinforcing your self-worth independently of the person who caused your pain. A critical component of this redirection is discipline. Personal growth requires consistency, effort, and intentionality. It is easy to become distracted or revert to old habits of ruminating on hurtful experiences. By committing to practices that nurture your development, whether daily reflection, structured learning, or physical routines, you reinforce a sense of agency over your life. Discipline transforms the energy that once fueled despair or fixation into a force for empowerment and tangible progress. Redirecting energy toward growth also has a profound impact on how you are perceived by others, including the person who hurt you. When someone expects to see you weakened, consumed by anger, or desperate for reconciliation, and instead observes you thriving, evolving, and focused on your own development, it challenges their assumptions and shifts the power dynamic. They are confronted not with a version of you defined by their actions, but with a version of you strengthened by your resilience and commitment to self-improvement. This quiet demonstration of strength can be more impactful than confrontation or explanation. Furthermore, personal growth cultivated in response to hurt fosters self-reliance and independence. When your progress, fulfillment, and sense of achievement are derived from your own efforts rather than validation from others, you cultivate a foundation of strength that is resilient to external disruptions. This self-reliance diminishes the influence of those who have caused pain, making it increasingly difficult for their actions to destabilize your emotional equilibrium. Over time, this independence becomes a defining characteristic of your identity. Redirecting energy also serves as a form of emotional protection. Engaging in growth-focused activities occupies the mind and heart with constructive pursuits, leaving less space for negative emotions to dominate. It prevents the energy that might have been wasted on resentment, overthinking, or attempts to control the other person from consuming your mental and emotional resources. In doing so, it ensures that your vitality is preserved for activities and relationships that nourish rather than drain you. Another essential aspect of this process is the cultivation of confidence. As you make tangible progress in personal, professional, and emotional arenas, you reinforce your belief in your abilities and your resilience. Confidence grows from achievement, skill development, and the consistent practice of self-care and reflection. Each step forward, no matter how small, becomes evidence of your capability, reminding you that your worth and potential are not defined by someone else's treatment of you. Redirecting energy toward growth also encourages a long-term perspective. While being hurt can feel immediate and overwhelming, investing in personal development shifts your focus to the future. It allows you to envision a life shaped by your own choices, goals, and values rather than dictated by past pain. This perspective fosters hope, optimism, and motivation, transforming the experience of being hurt into a springboard for self-empowerment and fulfillment. Moreover, redirecting energy fosters creativity and innovation. When you channel your emotional intensity into building skills, exploring passions, or pursuing projects, you often uncover new strengths, talents, and opportunities that might have remained dormant otherwise. Pain, when transformed into productive energy, becomes a catalyst for discovering parts of yourself that are capable, resourceful, and resilient. This creative transformation is both empowering and healing. It is also important to recognize that personal growth is a holistic process. Redirecting energy should encompass multiple dimensions of your life: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. Engaging with this process comprehensively ensures that your development is balanced and sustainable, reducing the risk of burnout or overcompensation in one area. A holistic approach allows you to emerge from hurt stronger, wiser, and more fully aligned with your authentic self. Ultimately, redirecting your energy toward personal growth transforms the narrative of hurt from one of victimhood to one of empowerment. It teaches you that your time, focus, and emotional resources are valuable, and that the most effective way to reclaim them is through constructive action. By investing in yourself through skill building, self-reflection, physical well-being, and purposeful engagement, you create a life that is resilient, fulfilling, and independent of those who may have caused you pain. Each effort compounds, reinforcing your sense of self-worth, confidence, and emotional stability over time. This consistent redirection of energy not only heals but strengthens you, creating a foundation that is less vulnerable to future hurt. It fosters a sense of accomplishment, self-reliance, and purpose that no external circumstance can diminish. Redirecting energy toward personal growth becomes both a shield and a tool, protecting your peace while simultaneously building the life you deserve. Through this practice, you reclaim agency, nurture resilience, and transform the aftermath of hurt into a journey of self-empowerment and profound personal evolution. Staying calm and unpredictable in your responses when a man hurts you is one of the most effective ways to reclaim your power and protect your emotional well-being. Many people instinctively react with anger, frustration, or pleading when they are hurt. While these emotional reactions are understandable, they often give away your power at the very moment you need it most. Reacting predictably communicates vulnerability and may encourage further disrespect or manipulation. In contrast, maintaining calm while introducing an element of unpredictability in your responses allows you to control the narrative, protect your energy, and establish boundaries without resorting to confrontation or defensiveness. The first step in cultivating calmness is self-awareness. Recognizing your emotional triggers and understanding how past experiences influence your reactions enables you to pause before responding. When hurtful behavior occurs, your mind naturally wants to react immediately, often in a way that mirrors the intensity of the pain you feel. By slowing down and observing your emotional state, you create the space to choose a response rather than act on impulse. This pause is the foundation for both calmness and unpredictability because it prevents automatic reactions that others might anticipate. Unpredictability in response is a strategic tool, not a form of manipulation. It does not mean being cold or vengeful. Rather, it means breaking the pattern that someone expects. When a person expects a particular reaction, such as anger, tears, or pleading, and instead encounters a measured, calm, or unexpected response, it forces them to reconsider their assumptions about you. This shift in perception can alter the dynamics of the relationship, prompting the other person to reflect on their actions rather than continuing to engage in behavior that causes harm. Unpredictability rooted in calmness is a form of quiet authority, demonstrating that you are in control of your emotional landscape. Maintaining calm also protects your energy. When you react emotionally, you give away a portion of your mental and emotional resources. Arguments, explanations, or confrontations often escalate the conflict, leaving you drained and unsettled. Calmness acts as a shield, allowing you to conserve your energy while observing the situation with clarity. By remaining centered, you avoid feeding into cycles of negativity and create the mental space to consider long-term solutions or decisions that prioritize your well-being. Calmness also communicates strength. People often equate emotional volatility with weakness or insecurity. By responding with composure, you convey that your sense of self and your peace are not contingent on another person's behavior. This silent demonstration of self-possession commands respect because it signals that you are not easily destabilized. It is a powerful reminder that your emotional state is your responsibility, not theirs, and that you can navigate challenges with dignity and grace. Unpredictability works hand in hand with calmness by creating a level of mystery that disrupts old patterns of interaction. When someone is accustomed to eliciting a particular response from you, they may feel a sense of control or predictability in the relationship. By intentionally breaking that pattern, you introduce a dynamic that forces reflection. The other person cannot manipulate your reactions if they do not know what to expect. This unpredictability does not mean inconsistency in your values or boundaries. It means consistency in your self-respect while varying the outward expression of your response to avoid giving others undue influence over your emotional state. Another aspect of staying calm and unpredictable is the practice of measured communication. When you do choose to respond, ensure that your words are deliberate and intentional. Avoid reacting impulsively or allowing anger to dominate the conversation. Measured responses allow you to convey your point without escalating tension. They also create an impression of confidence and self-control, reinforcing the perception that you are in command of yourself and your boundaries. Developing this approach requires practice and mindfulness. Calmness in the face of hurt is rarely instinctive. It is cultivated through repeated observation of your reactions and conscious decision-making. Techniques such as deep breathing, grounding exercises, or brief pauses before speaking can help regulate your emotional responses. Mindfulness allows you to remain present, preventing past grievances or imagined future scenarios from hijacking your behavior. By consistently practicing calm, you train yourself to respond with intention rather than reaction, strengthening both your resilience and your emotional intelligence. Unpredictability also provides a protective mechanism against further harm. When someone expects a reactive response and does not receive it, they may be less inclined to repeat hurtful behavior. Your composed and unexpected responses create a subtle boundary that communicates your limits without direct confrontation. Over time, this practice reinforces self-respect by demonstrating that your reactions are guided by your own standards rather than by attempts to influence or appease someone else. This approach also allows for strategic emotional detachment. Staying calm and unpredictable does not mean suppressing your feelings. It means processing them privately or in safe spaces rather than exposing them to someone who has caused pain. By maintaining control over when and how you express your emotions, you prevent others from using your vulnerability against you. Emotional detachment in this context is an act of self-preservation, ensuring that your peace is not compromised by someone else's behavior. Calmness and unpredictability also foster clarity of thought. When you are no longer consumed by immediate emotional reactions, you can evaluate the situation objectively. You can consider the motivations behind the other person's actions, the best course for your own growth, and the strategies for protecting your emotional well-being. This clarity enables you to make decisions from a place of strength rather than being driven by fear, anger, or insecurity. It allows you to distinguish between what requires attention and what does not, reducing unnecessary stress and emotional expenditure. Over time, this practice strengthens your overall resilience. Experiencing hurt becomes less destabilizing because you have developed a toolkit for maintaining composure and protecting your energy. You learn that your sense of self is not contingent on external validation or reaction from others. This resilience empowers you to navigate relationships and challenges with confidence, ensuring that your well-being is preserved regardless of the behavior of those around you. Finally, staying calm and unpredictable reinforces your personal authority. By mastering the art of measured responses, strategic detachment, and composure, you signal to both yourself and others that you are the primary steward of your emotional state. This authority is both protective and liberating. It allows you to interact from a place of choice rather than compulsion, creating relationships and interactions that are healthier, more balanced, and respectful of your boundaries. In essence, cultivating calmness and unpredictability transforms the way you experience hurt. It shifts your role from a reactive participant to a conscious agent in your emotional life. This practice protects your energy, preserves your dignity, and fosters self-respect while subtly shifting the dynamics of relationships in your favor. By mastering calmness and unpredictability, you develop a resilient, empowered presence that cannot be easily undermined, turning moments of pain into opportunities for self-mastery, clarity, and growth. Letting silence communicate what words cannot is one of the most powerful tools you can use when a man hurts you. In moments of pain, the natural instinct is to speak, to explain, justify, or demand acknowledgement for the hurt you feel. We often believe that if we articulate our pain clearly enough, the other person will understand and correct their behavior. While communication can be valuable in some contexts, when someone has already caused harm, words often fall short. Silence, when used intentionally, carries a weight that explanations and arguments cannot match. It communicates strength, dignity, and boundaries without giving away your emotional power. Silence allows you to reclaim control over the narrative. When you respond impulsively with words, you risk reacting from emotion rather than reason. You may unintentionally reveal vulnerability, provide information that can be manipulated, or escalate the conflict. By choosing silence, you maintain authority over your presence and your feelings. You signal that your emotional state is not negotiable and that your response will be measured rather than dictated by provocation or hurt. In this way, silence becomes a language of empowerment. There is also a psychological impact on the person who hurt you when you choose silence over immediate verbal response. Many people expect a certain reaction, anger, pleading, or an emotional outburst. Silence disrupts that expectation, creating a subtle shift in the dynamic. It forces them to confront the reality of their actions without relying on your emotional display for feedback. In effect, your silence can provoke introspection, reflection, or discomfort in a way that words often cannot achieve. It communicates that their behavior has consequences without you having to state them. Silence also serves as a protective mechanism for your emotional energy. When someone has hurt you, engaging in conversation can draw you into cycles of defense, argument, or over-explanation. These interactions are exhausting and often fail to produce resolution. By remaining silent, you conserve your mental and emotional resources, allowing yourself to process feelings internally and prioritize healing. Silence is a way of shielding yourself from further emotional depletion while maintaining composure and clarity. Another dimension of silence is that it communicates confidence and self-respect. Words can sometimes reveal insecurity or a need for validation. When you remain silent, you demonstrate that your worth is not dependent on the other person's acknowledgement. Your peace and integrity are intact, and you do not need to justify them to anyone. This quiet assertion of dignity can be more persuasive and impactful than a lengthy explanation because it is grounded in self-possession rather than defensiveness. Silence also encourages reflection, both for you and for the other person. When you step back and refrain from verbalizing your hurt, you create space for contemplation. You can process your emotions, evaluate the situation, and make decisions from a place of clarity rather than impulsivity. Similarly, the person who caused the hurt may begin to reflect on their actions in the absence of a reactive response. Silence can act as a mirror, prompting insight and awareness in ways that confrontation may not. Importantly, using silence strategically does not mean suppressing your feelings indefinitely. It does not require pretending that the hurt does not exist or ignoring your emotional reality. Instead, it is about choosing when, where, and how to express yourself. By withholding immediate reaction, you ensure that any eventual communication is intentional, thoughtful, and aligned with your boundaries. Your words, when they do come, carry authority and clarity because they are born from reflection rather than impulsive emotion. Silence also protects you from misunderstandings. In moments of heightened emotion, words can be misinterpreted or twisted, escalating conflict rather than resolving it. By remaining silent, you avoid contributing to confusion or miscommunication. This restraint allows you to engage later, if necessary, with greater precision and purpose, or to maintain distance when engagement is not beneficial. In either case, silence is a tool of clarity and control. There is a profound emotional intelligence component to using silence effectively. It requires awareness of your internal state, recognition of the other person's likely reactions, and discernment in choosing when to speak and when to withhold. Emotional intelligence involves understanding that your response does not always need to be immediate, and that sometimes your presence and restraint communicate more powerfully than any words could. Silence becomes a language of strategy, dignity, and resilience. Silence can also convey boundaries more effectively than verbal statements in certain situations. For example, refusing to argue, avoiding reactive engagement, or limiting communication after being hurt signals that certain behaviors are unacceptable. These silent actions demonstrate that your emotional space is protected and that your standards are non-negotiable. People are more likely to respect boundaries that are consistently enforced through action rather than solely through words. And silence is a subtle but unmistakable form of action. Furthermore, silence allows you to maintain composure and prevent regret. Speaking in the heat of hurt can lead to statements that are later regretted, whether they are overly harsh, emotionally charged, or misrepresentative of your true feelings. By pausing and observing a period of silence, you create a buffer that helps prevent impulsive reactions. This deliberate restraint safeguards your relationships, dignity, and long-term emotional well-being. The power of silence also lies in its ability to shift focus inward. Rather than being consumed by the desire for validation or the need to correct the other person, you turn attention back to yourself. This inward focus allows you to process your feelings, clarify your needs, and strengthen your resilience. You can ask yourself deeper questions. What did this experience teach me? What boundaries do I need to enforce? How can I grow stronger from this situation? Silence creates the mental space necessary for this critical reflection. Over time, mastering the art of silence builds confidence and emotional independence. You learn that your value is not contingent on others' approval or recognition, and that your emotional responses are yours to govern. You develop resilience in the face of hurt and gain the ability to navigate difficult situations with calm and dignity. Silence becomes not a sign of avoidance, but a symbol of mastery over your own emotions and the way you engage with the world. Silence can also inspire curiosity and self-reflection in others. When someone who expects drama, argument, or pleading encounters quiet composure, it challenges their assumptions and forces them to reconsider their own behavior. The absence of reaction can be more powerful than words in communicating disappointment, boundary enforcement, and personal integrity. It allows them to face the impact of their actions without the distraction of reactive engagement from you. Ultimately, letting silence communicate what words cannot is about reclaiming your agency, protecting your peace, and asserting your dignity. It transforms a situation that could otherwise lead to emotional exhaustion into an opportunity for empowerment. Silence communicates strength, fosters reflection, preserves energy, and reinforces boundaries without the risk of escalation or compromise. When used deliberately and thoughtfully, it becomes a powerful tool in navigating hurt, setting standards, and cultivating personal resilience. Through silence, you maintain control, assert self-respect, and turn moments of pain into opportunities for clarity, growth, and empowerment. Embracing your independence after a man hurts you is a transformative step toward reclaiming your power and rebuilding your sense of self. When someone causes emotional pain, whether through betrayal, neglect, or manipulation, it can leave you feeling destabilized, dependent, or uncertain about your own worth. It is natural to seek comfort, validation, or connection in the wake of hurt, but relying on the person who caused the pain or on external sources of approval often prolongs suffering. True empowerment comes from cultivating independence, from learning to stand firmly on your own feet, and from finding fulfillment and strength within yourself rather than in someone else's behavior or recognition. Independence begins with recognizing the ways in which the hurt has challenged your autonomy. Emotional pain can create a subtle dependency where you feel compelled to seek explanations, justification, or reconciliation in order to feel whole. Acknowledging these tendencies is the first step toward reclaiming your personal power. Understanding that your worth, stability, and emotional equilibrium do not rely on anyone else allows you to shift focus inward and invest in practices that reinforce self-sufficiency. A crucial aspect of embracing independence is cultivating self-reliance. This involves developing the skills, habits, and mindset necessary to meet your own needs, emotional, mental, and practical. It may mean learning to comfort yourself without seeking constant validation, developing routines that nurture your well-being, or creating a support system that aligns with your values rather than depending on someone who has hurt you. By strengthening your ability to rely on yourself, you build resilience and confidence that cannot be shaken by the actions of others. Independence also involves establishing clear boundaries that protect your energy and peace. When someone hurts you, it is essential to define what you will and will not tolerate in your interactions. These boundaries are a declaration of self-respect, a statement that your well-being is non-negotiable. Upholding them consistently reinforces your autonomy and demonstrates that your life and emotional state are yours to govern. Boundaries empower you to interact with others from a place of choice rather than compulsion, ensuring that your independence is maintained even in complex or challenging relationships. Another dimension of independence is reclaiming decision, making authority over your life. When you are hurt, it is easy to defer to others' opinions, seek guidance excessively, or allow external influences to dictate your choices. Embracing independence means trusting your judgment, making decisions that align with your values, and accepting responsibility for the outcomes without relying on someone else to validate or guide you. This practice nurtures confidence, clarity, and a sense of agency that strengthens your overall resilience. Emotional independence is a key element in this journey. It involves acknowledging your feelings, processing them fully, and finding healthy outlets for expression without relying on the person who caused the hurt. Journaling, meditation, therapy, or creative pursuits are tools that can help you process emotions internally. Emotional independence ensures that your sense of peace and well-being is self-generated rather than contingent on the actions, recognition, or approval of others. This internal stability becomes a foundation for navigating life with confidence and grace. Financial and practical independence can also play a significant role in reclaiming power after hurt. Being self-sufficient in your career, finances, or living situation reduces reliance on anyone who may have caused emotional pain. When you are able to support yourself fully, you gain a sense of freedom that allows you to make choices aligned with your best interests rather than being constrained by necessity or obligation. This independence reinforces self-respect and allows for authentic decision-making free from coercion or undue influence. Independence also fosters personal growth. When your energy is no longer consumed by trying to manage someone else's behavior or seeking their approval, you can redirect it toward pursuits that enhance your skills, expand your knowledge, and develop your character. Pursuing goals that matter to you, exploring interests that bring fulfillment, and investing in self-improvement allow you to thrive on your own terms. This growth reinforces the sense that your life and happiness are not dependent on external validation, creating a cycle of empowerment and confidence. Embracing independence requires patience and self-compassion. In the aftermath of hurt, it is normal to feel doubt, insecurity, or longing for the comfort of familiar patterns, even if they were harmful. Recognizing these feelings without judgment and committing to the process of self-reliance strengthens resilience. Each step toward independence, no matter how small, becomes evidence of your strength and capability, reinforcing your belief in your own agency and worth. Independence also enhances your interpersonal relationships. When you are secure in your own worth and capable of meeting your own needs, you interact with others from a position of strength rather than dependency. Relationships built on mutual respect and shared values flourish, while those that are toxic or exploitative naturally fall away. Your independence sets a standard for how you allow yourself to be treated, ensuring that connections are supportive rather than draining. Another important aspect of independence is cultivating a sense of identity that is distinct from anyone else's influence. Hurtful experiences can lead to self-doubt and confusion about your own needs, desires, or priorities. Embracing independence involves exploring who you are, what you value, and what you want from life. This process of self-discovery strengthens your confidence, provides clarity for decision-making, and ensures that your actions are guided by your authentic self rather than by attempts to appease or regain someone else's favor. Embracing independence also helps to break patterns of codependency. When you rely too heavily on someone else for emotional validation or stability, you risk repeating cycles of hurt and disappointment. By cultivating self-sufficiency, you reduce vulnerability to manipulation, emotional exhaustion, and repeated harm. Independence allows you to interact with others from a place of choice, freely deciding how much energy, time, and emotion to invest, rather than being compelled by fear, need, or habit. Ultimately, independence is a pathway to empowerment, resilience, and self-respect. It transforms the aftermath of hurt from a state of vulnerability into an opportunity for growth, strength, and autonomy. By cultivating self-reliance, emotional stability, practical self-sufficiency, and a strong sense of personal identity, you reclaim control over your life and your emotional well-being. Independence allows you to live according to your values, pursue your goals, and maintain dignity and strength regardless of external circumstances or the actions of others. Over time, embracing independence creates a life defined, not by past pain, but by self-determined growth, strength, and fulfillment. It fosters confidence, emotional maturity, and the capacity to engage with others from a place of choice and strength. By committing to your own autonomy and self-reliance, you ensure that your peace, happiness, and sense of worth are anchored within yourself, unshakable by anyone else's actions or opinions. Independence becomes both a shield and a compass, guiding you toward a life of integrity, empowerment, and authentic fulfillment in the wake of hurt. Choosing to rise above and live with grace after a man hurts you is the ultimate act of empowerment, one that separates those who are controlled by their circumstances from those who reclaim authority over their own lives. Hurt, betrayal, and emotional pain are experiences that can leave deep scars, shaking your sense of trust, worth, and stability. In the immediate aftermath, it is easy to be consumed by anger, resentment, or a desire for revenge. While these feelings are natural and valid, allowing them to dictate your actions can perpetuate suffering and keep you tethered to the person who caused the hurt. Choosing grace, however, shifts the focus inward, enabling you to transform the pain into strength, resilience, and clarity. Grace is not about condoning the behavior that harmed you. It is about refusing to be defined or diminished by it. Rising above requires a conscious decision to prioritize your own peace over the need to punish or seek validation. It is an acknowledgement that your energy is finite and that expending it on someone else's shortcomings only drains your vitality. When you choose to respond with composure and dignity, you reclaim control over your emotional state and demonstrate that no one else has the power to destabilize you. This choice is an act of self-respect, reinforcing the understanding that your life and your responses are yours to govern, not dictated by the actions of another person. Grace also manifests through the management of your emotions. Hurt often provokes intense feelings, anger, sadness, confusion, and disappointment that can cloud judgment. Choosing to rise above means allowing yourself to feel these emotions fully, but not allowing them to dictate impulsive reactions or decisions that you may later regret. It is about creating a space for reflection and measured action, ensuring that your responses are aligned with your values and long-term well-being, rather than momentary impulses. In this way, grace functions as both a shield and a guide, protecting your integrity while directing your choices toward empowerment. Living with grace also involves the power of restraint. Often when someone hurts us, the instinct is to retaliate, argue, or make the person understand the weight of their actions. While it may feel satisfying in the short term, these behaviors typically extend the cycle of conflict and keep you mentally and emotionally tethered to the person who caused harm. By choosing restraint, you refuse to feed the drama or allow others to control your reactions. This restraint is a subtle but potent form of power. It communicates that your peace is non-negotiable and that your dignity is preserved, regardless of the provocation. Rising above does not mean ignoring your pain or pretending that it does not exist. On the contrary, it requires full acknowledgement of the hurt and a commitment to processing it in a healthy way. This may involve personal reflection, journaling, therapy, or confiding in trusted allies who can provide perspective and support. By confronting your pain intentionally, you prevent it from festering or influencing your decisions unconsciously. Grace is most powerful when it is rooted in awareness and self-responsibility, not avoidance or denial. Another dimension of grace is the way it transforms your relationships and interactions. When you respond to hurt with composure, integrity, and a focus on your own growth, you model behavior that commands respect. Others are more likely to respond to a person who demonstrates consistent self-possession and dignity, rather than one who reacts predictably to every provocation. Grace has a magnetic quality. It attracts positive, respectful interactions and repels those who would seek to manipulate or diminish you. By embodying grace, you create an environment where healthy boundaries and mutual respect flourish. Choosing grace also fosters personal resilience. Each time you respond thoughtfully rather than reactively, you reinforce your capacity to manage future challenges with clarity and strength. This repeated practice strengthens emotional muscles, allowing you to navigate complex interpersonal dynamics and unexpected hardships without being destabilized. Resilience built in this way is enduring because it is grounded in self-awareness, intentionality, and self-respect rather than external validation or avoidance of conflict. Living with grace involves prioritizing long-term fulfillment over short-term satisfaction. Hurt often tempts us to seek immediate retribution or validation, but these responses rarely contribute to lasting peace. Grace encourages a broader perspective, one that emphasizes your personal growth, emotional equilibrium, and life goals. By focusing on what serves your higher purpose rather than momentary impulses, you ensure that your energy is invested in ways that enrich your life rather than perpetuate pain. This mindset fosters maturity, discernment, and a sense of empowerment that is independent of the actions of others. Grace is also a reflection of self-mastery. When you can navigate hurt with dignity, measured responses, and emotional intelligence, you demonstrate a level of control over your inner world that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. This mastery strengthens your identity, reinforces your self-respect, and protects your peace in ways that reactionary behavior cannot. Living gracefully is a declaration that your sense of self is anchored within, not contingent on someone else's treatment or approval. Rising above enables you to reclaim your narrative. When someone hurts you, there is a temptation to allow their actions to define your story or to shape how you perceive yourself. Choosing grace allows you to rewrite the narrative on your own terms. You decide how much energy to devote, how to interpret the experience, and how it contributes to your growth. This reclamation of narrative is a profound act of empowerment. It reminds you that your life and choices belong to you, not to the person who caused pain. Furthermore, grace cultivates a sense of freedom. Emotional reactivity often creates invisible chains, binding you to the person who hurt you through anger, resentment, or obsession. By rising above and responding with composure and intentionality, you free yourself from these chains. Your emotional state becomes self-determined, and your peace is no longer hostage to the actions or opinions of others. This freedom is transformative, enabling you to move forward unencumbered by the past. Another key aspect of living with grace is its subtle influence on the person who caused hurt. While grace is not intended to manipulate or punish, it often inspires reflection in others. When someone expects a reactive response and instead encounters poise, composure, and self-possession, it disrupts their assumptions and invites awareness of the consequences of their behavior. Grace communicates more than words. It conveys strength, boundaries, and integrity in a manner that is both powerful and dignified. Ultimately, choosing to rise above and live with grace is about taking ownership of your life, emotions, and responses. It is about refusing to let hurt define you or diminish your value. Grace allows you to navigate pain without compromise, maintain dignity without confrontation, and preserve your energy for growth, healing, and meaningful pursuits. It is a conscious, deliberate practice that transforms the aftermath of hurt into an opportunity for empowerment, clarity, and resilience. Over time, living with grace strengthens every aspect of your life. It builds emotional intelligence, fortifies resilience, enhances relationships, and nurtures a profound sense of self-respect. It teaches that power lies not in retaliation or reactive behavior, but in composure, intentionality, and the unwavering commitment to preserve your peace. Choosing grace is not a passive act. It is an active, strategic decision to live aligned with your values, maintain dignity, and embrace a life of empowerment, despite the actions of others. By embodying grace, you rise above hurt, reclaim your power, and cultivate a life defined not by pain, but by strength, clarity, and enduring self-respect.